All right, guys, here we go. So, as requested by Dan the Man, here's a video on the Accurate Roll Vandal. It's a disc I've grown very fond of, and I'm about to give you about 23 reasons why I love it. So, we're going to go in order of the courses. We're going to start with Blueberry Thicket. This is hole number 4. Lots of different ways you can go about this, but here's an ace line with the Vandal. This is not a disc I use a lot for ace lines. It's more just a setup disc. Or just something to keep me nice and safe. And I'll show you lots of examples of how I like to use it. But this is something, especially in a one win like this, I'm not going to go ahead and keep changing wins. I'm just going to throw it a few times. There you go. Second shot, we got it to drop. So pretty accurate. It's not going to go anywhere once it lands. So a very safe ace run there. This one, if you don't want to go across, then it's a great setup disc, and that's what I used to use it for. If I was ahead and didn't want to risk going over, I would just go default aim, put a bunch of hyzer on it, and it's a perfect disc to set you up for the eagle throw in. Now with the water skip disc in play, I doubt I'm going to be doing this very often. I'm one that tends to always go for it anyway, but if I have a big lead and I just don't even want to risk it, then it's a great disc just to throw right to the edge. I don't have to worry about it going long, and it sets you up for a nice throw in for eagle. Here we go with Lakeside 3. Any sort of default aim, I'm always a fan of, because you can just open it up. You know you're on the aim point you want. And this is a great safe ace line, especially in calm winds with default aim. So I'm not going to show all my throws here, but there's the first one. Stops nice and safe, and it gives you a shot. I'm keeping this one wind. Obviously, you can adjust per winds. If I have a big tailwind, I'm probably not throwing this. So you got to be smart about which winds you're throwing it in. But you can see this is my 7th throw here. So it didn't take too long, but default aim, one wind. It's a great disc for a nice safe ace line there. Next we got Lakeside hole number 5. This is another one where now with the water skip disc, not going to use it as much, but before, usually I'm just pulling out my Vandal, throwing at default aim, and it's my perfect setup disc for the warship. So it gives me a perfect distance, like 220s, 215, somewhere around there. And there you go, slam in the eagle with the warship. So if you got a big lead, you don't want to risk going over or a tough wind, then I just pull out the Vandal, default aim, and chuck it up there. Never have to worry about it going in the water, and it sets me up for my warship throw-in. Here you go with Lakeside 7. This is only one that I'll consider if it's a big headwind, because I normally throw the Instinct or the warship here, but those probably won't reach in this big 3 headwind. So that's when I'll throw out the Vandal. It's got enough distance to make the basket, but it doesn't go very far past it with the roll feature. So it's a safe ace line disc to throw in a big headwind. So again, that's the only time I'm going to be throwing this disc on this hole. But again, this is one of the times I can pull it out. So here's my 3rd attempt. None of these are going far enough to where I have to worry about not getting the birdie. Here's attempt number 4. Obviously with that wind, you got to put some hyzer on it, but there you go. Lakeside 7. And here we go, Lakeside 9. Now the only time I'm going to be throwing this is also in a big headwind. Usually I'm throwing the Instinct. You can see here I got that headwind. I'm going to throw what I normally throw, try to get it into that log, which it normally gets there. But with this headwind, it's going to fall quite short and make that next shot a little more difficult. So I'll pull out the Vandal, just make sure it has enough distance to go right into that log. And that way it makes that second shot much more doable to get the eagle on this hole. So anytime I have a headwind, I'll pull out the Vandal, make sure I get far enough, nice straight throw right to that log. So another great utility disc. That's mainly what I use this disc for, is just a nice setup disc to put me in the spot I want. Especially in calm winds, it's very easy to control. But there you go, set it up for that glide roll rive, get you that eagle. So this is one of my favorite holes to throw the Vandal. When I see this left to right 4-wind, my eyes light up. I click on the Vandal, put that bottom chevron right on top of the basket there, right in line with the arrow. Straight down pull, and I've gotten this 3 times in multiplayer, which is a bonus stroke every single time. I mean, nobody's going to run this in a 4 tailwind. But if you have the Vandal, it's a safe run. I mean, you go maybe 50, 60 feet past if you miss, and honestly, it gives you a good chance of making it. So that was my second throw. Again, forewind, left to right, pull out the Vandal. As Daniel would say, boom. Just like this one, drop it in. So I love that throw. A three wind left to right, then the Accurate Roll Sapphire is a great disc for an ace line on that hole. This one just depends on the wind. If it's a one wind, I'm usually trying to ace run this one, even though it's a tough one to get. But here's a nice, safe line with the Vandal. You can either go forehand or backhand, depending on the wind. But I know this hole is challenging for a lot of people, and sometimes the Vandal is a great option depending on what the wind's doing, or depending on if I have a lead or not. If I have a lead and I don't even want to ace run it, don't want to risk it, and it's a nice calm wind, then I'm just going to aim right at the basket like this and chuck the Vandal straight at it. And usually it's going to end up somewhere down inside the circle, leave me with the putt for birdie. So just another great hole to have the Vandal on as an option. All right, this is Grizzly Gulch, hole number 5. So this one, the only time I'm throwing this one, usually I'm ace running this one with the Accurate Roll Sapphire on a forehand. But if it's a big tailwind, especially if I have a lead and I don't want to go way up on the hill, the Explorer is a good option, but it has all that fade. So lately I've just been pulling the Vandal out, put it right above that tree there with the bottom chevron and a straight down pull. And it's pretty much a guaranteed birdie from there. You don't have to worry about flying by the basket. It's not going to give you a chance for ace, but that's a tough ace anyway in that wind. Sometimes you can get into some trouble going too deep on this with your normal ace line. So if I've already got a lead or it's a close round and I want to make sure I get the birdie and I got a big tailwind on this hole, even a 2-wind, I'll sometimes pull out the Vandal and throw it on a forehand. Just keep it nice and safe. After this, we're going to move to Owlwood. Excited to show you this one. I'm sure this is a hole that a lot of people struggle on. I usually throw the Accurate Roll Sapphire, but recently I've switched to the Vandal as it's much more consistent. Slide to the left, bottom chevron right on the arrow of the basket, and almost a straight pull. Maybe a little bit of Anheuser to make sure you turn it over a little bit to miss that tree there. But you don't have to worry about going way past the basket into the wall and having a testy birdie putt coming back. Pretty much any wind except for a big headwind. If it's a big headwind, I don't even want to risk it. It could potentially be short of the wall, so I'm going to throw the Sapphire. If it's a one wind, I'm usually throwing an ace line with the Skip Sapphire, but any other winds, I'm pulling out the Vandal, and lately it's been giving me, I don't have to worry about hitting that tree on the left. It's easy to shape, just go nice and straight, and I don't have to worry about going too far past the basket. That even hit the wall and it still didn't end up as far as a Sapphire does sometimes. So I love this line. Really excited about it. Maybe like 4 or 5 days ago, I was like, hey, let me try the Vandal here, and was pleasantly surprised. Moving on to Highlanders Ridge. This is a hole. This is the only wind I'm going to be throwing this in. Maybe even a 2-tailwind. I'll throw the Vandal. But I'm sure some of you know the regular disc you throw on this and a big tailwind, sometimes you can fly over the hit point, and you can get into some trouble and end up with a par or bogey. So if that's the case, I'll disc down to the Vandal, put that middle chevron right there on that Mando arrow, and it's a perfect disc for a tailwind here. Gives you a shot at ace, and you don't have to worry about it going over the wall there. So big 3-wind, right to left, slide to the right, open up that gap a little bit, and nice safe run for the birdie. Let me pull out my Accurate Roll Sapphire. That's the disc I typically throw in this in other winds, and this is the line I use. And I'll show you what I mean. You can just catch that tailwind, and there's a prime example. I mean, this ended up safe, I guess, but still not where you want to be. This, I've used the Vandal ever since I used to have the river, and the Vandal replaced the river. So forehand, oops, let me switch to forehand. Forehand default aim, another great hole for a default aim. Just put a little bit of hyzer. Depends on what that wind's doing, but easy birdie hole. This might not be a hole you struggle with, but I really prefer a straight disc on this versus anything with any sort of stability to it. So I think the Vandal is a great disc for this hole. Default aim, I just have to adjust a little bit for the wind with my pull down. So we got a little bit right to left, so I'm going to put a little bit of hyzer on it. And it works out every time. Now we're going to Highlander's Ridge 9. Now this is another one I'm super excited about. I used to always throw the accurate roll. Look at that default aim. This is a one wind, a little bit of anhyzer, but man, I'm excited about using it on this hole now. I used to only use it with like big tailwinds, but now I'm going to use it all the time. Default aim, I'm going to go a little lower in this wind. Still a pretty straight pull down. And check out the result here. Right where you want to be. Set yourself up for birdie. You don't have to worry about going long. Don't have to worry about falling off short to the right into the danger where you might not be able to see the basket. Especially in these calm one winds. Oh man, easy hole now in the calm winds. Still can be tough with certain winds. This is a big strong tailwind, so this is when I might consider pulling it out on a forehand. Put some anhyzer on it. I probably didn't turn that enough. That's probably in some trouble. We got lucky there. Great result there, but again, if you got a calm wind and you got the Vandal, pull it out. Don't change your aim. Put some anhyzer on it and throw in your birdie from about 50 feet. Next up, we got Cahill Park, hole number 5. Now this one is one that I've aced, I think 3 times now with this disc. So as long as there's not a headwind, it can clear the water just fine. You don't have to worry about it going long into the bushes. And if you hit that bank just right, it's going to pop up and give you a shot at acing it. So it's a fun one to get. Don't get it often, but still it's a safe line. Anything but a headwind. If there's any sort of headwind, I'm going to throw the Accurate Roll Sapphire on a similar line. But you just got to flex it a little more. With this Vandal, it's a pretty straight pull down. Maybe a little bit of hyzer to make sure it doesn't turn too much into the trees. And sometimes, you can hit that bank and pop up right into the basket. Here's another one. I'm probably not going to use a Vandal on, but if you're looking for a disc and you want an ace line or a safe line here, it's definitely an option. I just like to have a disc with a more stable disc to prevent right there what just happened. You want it kind of fading a little more hard to avoid the water on this. That's why I choose the Accurate Roll Sapphire or the PD here. But it is an option. And you can see that you can get right at the basket, especially in a calm wind. We'll see if we can get one to drop here on this line. This is looking really good. There we go. So we saved our par there. Third shot with that line. Got our ace. And then if you want to make it a safe, you can use it kind of more for a safe line and just aim a little to the left and put more hyzer on it so it's coming in and fading away from the water. And I think you can still have a chance at ace with this disc, but still have it be a much more safe line as it's fading away from the water towards the end. All right, into Coyote Canyon. This is another default aim. You can go straight over the top. You don't have to worry about that stupid tree there. Perfect disc if you just want to get your birdie, go to the next hole. I love this disc for this hole. I used to throw the River on a similar line, but now it's the Vandal. Again, default aim. With this wind, I'm going to put some hyzer on it. Just look at the wind, adjust from there, and you can usually pretty easily hit that big gap and have a little tap in for your birdie. Any sort of one wind in this hole, unless I'm up by a bunch of strokes, I'm usually throwing my Skip Sapphire on an ace line. But if I just want my birdie, don't want to worry about anything, then the Vandal is the perfect disc for Coyote Canyon, hole number 1. Look at that, straight down, don't have to adjust my aim. Default aim, give me a tap in. There you go. All right, Coyote Canyon 8. This is not something, every once in a while on a big headwind, I'll throw the River. But actually playing around with it, I'm liking it more and more. I usually throw the Accurate Roll Sapphire either on a backhand or a forehand, or I'll throw the Instinct with the big, oh, look at that. First shot, we got it to drop, so there you go. And you can see if that were to miss, it's not going to go very far past, so very safe ace line disc here. We got a big tailwind. I'm going to change it to a forehand. Probably not going to have enough distance to make it, but it's going to give us an easy birdie. It's not going to go very far past the basket in a big tailwind. So here we got a left to right. Make sure we put some hyzer on it. Not going to get there, but it's not going very far past the basket, and that can be a scary putt coming back. You don't want to go too far by, so this is a great option for this hole. I know a lot of you throw the musket or the sapphire, but there you go, got it twice within just a few throws. So very viable option to get an ace, and a very safe ace line for that hole. With this one, sorry, got distracted. Frozen Valley, hole 6. So this is just a really safe birdie play. I used to throw accurate roll sapphire, but I found the Vandal just to be that much easier. Just aim right at the basket and let that turn of the disc just turn it away, come down nice and soft. And even when it hits the trees, I've never rolled back into the water like sometimes the sapphire will do. If you get it going a little too far left and it catches one of those trees, you got to worry about it bouncing into the water. With the Vandal, just throw it right at the basket, let it turn over. I won't throw it in a big headwind, or if I do, I'll make sure I aim farther right. But any other winds, it's a great play for birdie there. This is another one I love, default aim. If you're struggling with this hole and you have this disc, just look at this, man. It's just straight pull down. You don't have to adjust the aim at all. Just lands nice and soft, easy birdie for what can be a tough hole. I used to throw the accurate roll sapphire here. I still do sometimes, especially if I'm trying to ace it. But if I just need a birdie, the Vandal's the way to go. With a big tailwind, I'm probably adjusting and throwing an accurate roll sapphire on a line I'm more accustomed to. These understable discs can go pretty far in the tailwind, so that's the only time I'm not throwing the Vandal now on this hole. Like with this wind here, this can be pretty tough. Let's try it out and see what happens. Have to put a bunch of anhyzer, but that wind's definitely going to carry it pretty far. This looks pretty good, so sorry. Definitely doable in all winds, especially these calm winds. Pull out the Vandal, don't adjust the aim, default aim, pull it straight down, and finish off your birdie. You can gain strokes on this hole just by getting a birdie. Now here we go with Northern Lights 4. This is another hole I love to throw this disc on. The best part about this disc on this hole is it puts me in the exact same spot pretty much every time. Right here is exactly where you want to be, and it gives me the exact same shot at my eagle. So I'm very, very, very used to this throw-in. So I get it pretty often since I'm ending up in the same, just high. You can see how accurate I am with that throw in, depending, all kinds of winds. I'm just used to being in that same spot. So in par fours, if you can set yourself up and put yourself in the exact same spot every time, then it just increases your chances because you get more and more used to that throw in. So sometimes I'll adjust, my aim point a little bit depending on the wind. Like with this one, I'm going to aim a little lower. Just let the disc turn a little more just to prevent myself from, since it is a backhand throw, I don't want it going off to the left, just like that. And I'll throw anything from the accurate roll sapphire to the accurate glide sapphire, depending on where I end up exactly and what the wind's doing. So we'll try to throw it in one more time just to show you. Hopefully I can get it to at least catch some metal, not make myself a liar and say I'm not accurate. We're going to go with the Beast in this headwind. A little longer than the accurate roll sapphire. See if we can, looking pretty good. Just missed to the left, but again, that's a key to par fours. This one, I'm usually throwing the accurate roll sapphire. Let me show you here my normal aim point with the sapphire. I usually slide to the left, top chevron down on that bush there. This is just the toughest wind for this hole. I kind of purposely didn't turn it enough just so you can see the danger, but once it catches that wind, you're going to fly OB. So this is the one time I'll pull out the Vandal instead of the sapphire. Same aim point, I'm just going to aim a little higher with the Vandal. Put a little more turn on it. And this is an awesome option that I don't have to worry about it flying long. That line was a little risky, but it worked out perfectly. Let's throw it again. I won't put quite as much turn on this one. Yeah, this is kind of right in the middle of that wall. That's where you're kind of wanting to aim, nice and safe. And there you go. So that's when I'm throwing the Vandal on this hole. It can definitely save some strokes. You don't have to power down. I really hate powering down discs. So anytime I can throw a shot and not have to power down, I prefer that. All right, here we go with the Beast hole 1. Another great disc for this hole. You might not struggle with this one, but I've really found that the Vandal, I just am more accurate. Default aim, you don't have to mess with your aim. Put some hyzer on it and let it work its way down towards the basket. Perfect hole setup for this disc. Got a big right to left. I'm going to take a little bit off of this just because it's going to fly. That can be still pretty challenging. That worked out perfect, but haven't practiced that as much. But the calm winds especially, default aim, put some hyzer on it, and perfect distance for this hole. And last hole, we're going to go with the Beast hole number 5, another great option for this hole. Another default aim. I used to throw accurate roll Sapphire, but I was having to adjust my aim, so this is a disc I can throw on a default aim on a forehand. Put a little bit of turn on it, depending on what the wind is. That was straight down there, and perfect distance for this hole. Again, I'm not using the Vandal very often for ace lines, although there's been plenty of holes where I've been able to get the ace. I don't use it often for throw-ins, although there's times when it just feels right and it feels like the disc to use. But hopefully this has given you a bunch of examples of how this disc can come in handy. So if it's something you have in your bag or something you're considering, hopefully this video has given you some options on where to use it and how it can be helpful. But there's my 23 examples of why the AR Vandal is an awesome disc. Hope you guys enjoyed this. As always, appreciate the support, and thanks for watching me play some DGV.